So one of the things that often gets overlooked in a early base build is the lander itself. Now we love the lander, it got us here alive clearly. I don't quite know how we fit it in. I guess we sat on this comfy looking chair on the outside that we can't ever get back into. It looks frankly terrifying. Anyway, much as we love the lander for getting us here safely, it is actually a complete pain, and it's a complete pain for two primary reasons. So the first one that you may or may not encounter quite early on is you think, actually I want to expand my base, and suddenly you can't do that. And you can't do that because the lander's in the way. And not only that, even in a square like this where you think, well, the lander's not in the way of that, apparently it actually is. So that can be really frustrating, and you can see it's actually quite a large area depending on how it's fallen and the terrain it's landed on. It can be at a funny angle. You can have quite a large area that you can't build in, so that's incredibly frustrating. That's the first problem. The second problem is all these containers that are on the lander have got your initial supplies that are all clearly important, and you'll want to hang on to them. On the moon, that's fine. This is a perfectly valid storage solution. But if you're on Mars or any of the other planets where you can have storms, the lander will gradually get damaged by storms, and it'll probably take 3 or 4. Sometimes if you get lucky, it might even last 5. But when it gets to a certain level of damage and is destroyed, and obviously as with anything else, if it has taken damage you can hover over it and see the damage bar. If there's no damage bar like you see here, then it's not taken any. But if it actually gets destroyed, everything on it, including all these crates and the tank, gets destroyed. You might find a few scrappy bits of wreckage, but even if you feed them into your recycler, you ain't getting anything back for them, and all of this is lost. So that's clearly not an ideal solution. So one of the things I quite often like to do is, given that these crates are useful storage, is to actually construct an area close to the lander and build some container mounts, and then we can take the crates off, strap them down. Again, if you leave crates loose in a storm, they can blow away, but they will also take damage. So really, I mean, if we were on Mars, I would be saying don't leave anything lying around like that. Get it put away, because if it's inside a crate and that crate is locked down, then it won't be affected by a storm, but anything left lying around loose is vulnerable. So let's start by setting aside an area here that we're going to use. Now ideally I would absolutely love, as I say, to be able to put some more frames here, but I can't, so let's go over here for now. It's the next best thing, and we'll just drop down a bunch of frames and give them a, I think that's all of them. Right, we'll give them a quick single weld, just so that they are structural and we can mount on them. The good thing is, obviously, this is a good space to store crates, but where the lander's currently standing, we'll be able to reuse that space as well later. Right, this is actually really difficult to see under here. I'm going to have to mine these out first. I should just mine them first. It's really just kind of habit. Right, there we go. Let's just clear these back. I mean, to be fair, it's much easier once they've been single welded when you do the mining, because you don't fall through, but nonetheless, as I've just demonstrated by falling through, on the other hand, being able to see where you're going is a definite advantage. Right, okay, so I think that will be enough room. Obviously, if you look at containers, they are crates, they are quite bulky things, so we do need a reasonable amount of space set aside to do this. What have I done with the frames? See, this is another reason to put things away. Anyway, that's fine. Let's just weld these. Right. So what I'm going to do is, from the auto lathe, I'm going to print some container mounts. Now these take 10 iron each, so obviously there's 6 crates on the lander, 6 crates, yep, 6 crates, and there's also a gas tank, so you might want to strap that down. So the tank you can get from, oh, what's happened there? That's interesting. Okay, that's better. So here, if we get a tank holder, connector even, that's the word I was looking for. So that's an insulated tank connector. I just want the normal one. There we are, tank connector. That also takes some iron, but only 5. So we're just going to make one of those. And I'll show you how just to strap things down. So tank connector first. Right, how are we doing here? I think this is the last one. You'll see I've just let these run on and they're going absolutely flying. Right, okay, so right, we're one short on that. Never mind, we'll come back for that in a minute. Right, so obviously just right click to put down, choose where you're going to put them. There's a bit of a trade-off, obviously. I don't want them too far from the lander, but I do want enough space to move, so I'm going to put them along here, along here, along here, and I'm going to put them along the edge here and here. We need one more of those, and I'm going to put the tank holder down here. Now these things, I might move all of these around later on in a normal build, but this just means that at least I can get these items strapped down and safe, and then I can dismantle the lander completely, which will allow us to build in that space. So we'll just let this last one print. There we go, and put that into there. So to remove things from the lander, very simple. Get the wrench in your hand, point at them, you'll see the yellow box, hold, and it will disconnect. Now I recommend doing these kind of one at a time because they tend to go a bit flying. Also picking crates up can be a little bit challenging. Right, so then let's put this one down. And in terms of putting it down, what we want to do is we want to drop it kind of on there. So I'm going to do that and tap Q. And then if I switch, you'll see this has now gone a yellow box around it again. So if I hold down, I can connect it, and you'll see that snaps it to there. That is now bolted down. That is safe. I can't just pick it up if I click on the handle. I can, however, still open it, and that's not going to blow away in a storm. So if we just go ahead and repeat that exercise for the other crates. So you see we can just disconnect them all like this, but just bear in mind they go flying around a bit. So let's rinse and repeat. And you'll see they don't need to be too accurately lined up. The only thing is, just bear in mind if you hold your finger on the button for too long, it'll start disconnecting them. You see that is not close enough, or it's close to 2 and it doesn't know where it wants to lock it down, but even at that angle it'll take that. So you don't need to be too precise. Be a little bit careful when you're picking crates and other large objects up. Sometimes they snap around quite suddenly if they've clipped onto the landscape or something, so just be cautious. They can either hit you directly or more often knock you into something else or something else into you that can cause damage to your suit. You can fly while you're carrying them if you need to. It will make you slightly more sluggish, but it doesn't make a huge difference. There we go, and we'll drop that in there. And then as far as the tank goes, it's exactly the same process. So we just use the wrench, we just disconnect it. Obviously be a bit more careful with the tank because being cylindrical it rolls further. And you'll see I grabbed that tank using the grey, although it doesn't seem to hold it near me, the grey bits in the middle. So I'll just try and push this together. I'm just going to show you a little bit about the tank before I connect it. So these tanks have got handles in the middle here. These bits here which you can see highlighting in green as I hover over them. But there's a couple of other things to note. So first of all, when they're not bolted down, This yellow and black section here, you can use that. If I take my oxygen cylinder, I can hover over, you'll see this green box appears. I can drop it in and it will actually recharge my tank, or at least it will equalise pressures between the two. Obviously be careful if I drag carbon dioxide in there, that's going to add carbon dioxide and mix that. We can also see, we can hover over or look at the pressure dial, and that tells us how much is left in the tank. Obviously if it over pressurizes it's going to explode. And then the other thing to be aware of is you can also, when it's not strapped down, you can also use these here to increase or decrease the rate of flow from the tank out through the valve at the top. So I'm not going to waste too much oxygen, but if I just turn it once to 10 kPa, you'll see that's oxygen coming out of the tank, and that's taken some pressure out, and then obviously in this case just vented it. Those controls are not available once it's bolted down, and I'm going to go ahead and bolt that down now. And you'll see that's now nicely linked up here, but the exit port is now connected to this pipe here that goes down into the base. That's effectively permanently turned on. You can't do anything with the wheel. You can still read the pressure, but unsurprisingly it's bolted down. There's no handles. If you want gas from this tank now, you can connect a gas pipe to this port here, and that will then connect this tank into the whatever gas pipe network you've got set up. Okay, so that's everything off the lander. You can see it looks quite bare now. So now what we're going to do, we just want to get it out of the way so we can build. We're just going to go ahead, we're going to switch to the angle grinder, and you'll see a deconstruct comes up, and you can see from the size of that hitbox around it quite how much space that lander was stopping us from building in. It's really quite massive, but it is as simple as hold left and boom, the lander is gone. There's nothing back, you don't get anything back, any wreckage, anything else. It's just gone. However, now it has gone, we have a large space there, and if I'll just quickly spawn in some frames just to demonstrate. If I take some frames where I couldn't build before, you'll see it's now all fine, and I can just place frames down here and reclaim some space outside my base. So I recommend doing that. As I say, it's a sort of task that does get overlooked. Either make sure that you do as I've done here and remove the crates and mount them, or extract all the contents from the crates, at which point you can use a power drill to actually collapse them back into a kit, from which, if you wish, you can recycle them, or you can use them later. You might want to mount them on a rover later or something, for example. But for now, that's what I did with the other frames. It's just a useful way to keep things out of the way. Gives you quite a lot of storage, although it is a bit more fiddly to access than the locker because you can't immediately see what's in there. But you know, that's each one of these crates has obviously got 10 storage slots in it. So you know, that's 60 item slots you've got available there to keep things safe and out of the way of storms. So I definitely recommend, unless you're on the moon, you keep everything in these crates or inside the hab or some other place strapped down. If you are on the moon, you can get away with leaving them lying around like this. Obviously it's useful for some things like the portable solar panel, but just don't get in the habit of it, because when you're playing on Mars you will come to regret it. So there you go. That's what to do with the lander, how to get rid of it. You can see where I've mounted these. I haven't actually left myself enough space to get through. That's how to get rid of the lander and avoid losing all your stuff.